Okay, beautiful. I'm here with the wonderful one and only Tarzan Kay. And this is exclusively for the Yoga and Business Summit, which we're holding in collaboration with Yoga Australia. So we're specifically talking to an audience of yoga teachers. There's so many things I could ask Tarzan about. I have completed Tarzan's Email Stars program. It's one of the best online programs I've ever done. It was absolutely exceptional. But we'll talk about that another time because we've got a short amount of time and I've got so many questions. What I want to talk to Tarzan about today is story writing and copywriting and where the two kind of intersect. But before we go into that, and I think we're going to probably touch in on the world of AI as well, I do want to just start with something that I think is very pertinent for Tarzan to answer. So although it's slightly off topic, I couldn't have her here without asking her this question. And this is around the capacity that we have within our businesses and actually within ourselves as human beings to evolve and change our minds and do things differently in real time in a public place in front of an audience. So I feel like as yoga teachers, you know, we are spiritual practitioners. We're teaching to a certain extent personal development. And it can feel very difficult if something within you is changing and evolving, perhaps your opinion about something, perhaps your personal practice, perhaps your ethics, whatever it might be. And you have an audience, you have people following you. And I think that many of us, and I've found myself in this trap as well, get stuck in feeling like we have to be consistent and that there's consistency as some kind of gold standard. So Tarzan, I'm really thankful for you for being here and keen to ask you as a starting question. You're someone that just, it appears, has no challenges whatsoever, evolving, growing, changing. So tell us about that.
Oh, I feel like I have nothing but challenges, but I have walked through all of my challenges really publicly with my email list. So I have been in online business for 8 years and have, started out like highly indoctrinated into a system of persuasion and marketing that, a lot of people in the yoga world, in wellness, they come into online business and they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. And I was really like, oh, well, maybe you have a mindset problem, or maybe you just need to be braver and do this persuasive thing that I'm teaching you how to do. And, after 4 years of doing that, I finally started to look at the systems I was using and realized I wasn't really comfortable with a lot of it. And something about waking up to a system of indoctrination, it doesn't happen overnight. I started by saying, okay, this one thing in my business I'm not comfortable doing, so I'm going to take a break. I didn't even say I'm not doing it. I said, I'm going to stop doing this for a year. I never went back to it. And I have publicly taken my email subscribers through a lot of personal transformations, through my divorce, through letting go a number of employees, through turning my business from this highly scaled, look at me, I'm a superstar thing, to more of a solo operation that actually really nourishes me more. And actually having being seen in that transition with my email subscribers was so that did so much for me as much as it did for them. In online business, there's really it's very raw. It's very oh, the transformation you will have. There's so many big transformational promises that actually my email subscribers, what they came to me for was just real honesty about what it's like to build an online business and the things that I used to do that I no longer do. And that's been the best part of having an email list and being an email marketer, is all these people that come on the journey with me that I feel are supportive. I learn from them. Something I had to do early on was take critical feedback, because I can be loud and opinionated, and sometimes I just put an opinion out there without thinking too much. And I've learned how to take feedback from them. I've also learned how to be okay with someone not liking me or not agreeing with me. That's also part of it. It's really easy to talk about transformation, like, oh, you could have a wonderful business like me. Oh, you could have as much money as I do. But to actually like be in conflict with people has been like really great skill. And like, it is like that thing you're just talking about is like bringing people along with me has been by and large, like the best thing about my business and running my business in this way.
Beautiful. I mean, it's a very overused word, but I think authenticity is the word that kind of comes to my mind, because you're talking about having genuine human relationships rather than your customers and your clients being a sort of conceptual entity at the end of an email list that you don't really have an engagement with. There's actually an exchange taking place. I love that you highlighted the before and after scenario, because actually one of the other presenters in the summit will be Kelly Dales, who I think I met through you actually. And she and I will be talking about this idea of the before and after narrative and how unhelpful that can be, because we're all in constant change. Like there is no before and after. It's just us as human beings growing and changing.
Yeah. And one thing about being in wellness is like there's such pressure to present yourself as this like healed and evolved person, which I also thought that I had to be. And, part of everything I've been through and all the growth is like actually realizing that we are all just humans having human experiences. And in an industry where everyone else is often presenting like this idealized life, to have someone that's just, being a human like you, like it's really humanizing, which, looking at someone's curated Instagram profile is not. So again, like bringing people on the journey with you. I remember I used to belong to this yoga studio. It was a wonderful studio. And we all knew the owner because she was like the matriarch of the whole operation. And I didn't know, like, I kind of knew that running that business was really hard for her, that there were unique challenges. And she was actually like doing it all on her own. And there was like a whole story going on for her that none of us were really in on. And I think like that it is an opportunity for community building, for trust building, to like bring people into the things that you're dealing with. And I do think this is a new way of doing business and a new way of building community, rather than being like the leader at the top who has achieved the dream that we're all looking for. Like literally nobody has that. We all have areas where we're really strong and areas where we need help. And that's one way that we can really create connection, is by, just being open about that and sharing those stories.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's really subtle, small things. Like I remember something you asked me about in one of the emails I had written within the Email Stars program. I was referring to myself or my company as we. So I was like, we're here to help you. We can blah, blah, blah. And you said, is it we or is it you? And actually the truth is, it's me. And that's a kind of throwback to an old paradigm that says, I have to make out like it's something really big and flashy and there's a whole organization, and it's not just me in my lounge room at home writing you this email on a Tuesday afternoon. It's like an empire. So sometimes it's just like such a small, subtle shift from, it's not a we, it's a me, and I'm a person speaking to another person.
Yeah. When I started my business, year one, my website was all we this, we that. It was like, we provide this copywriting service. And I did have like a business name. Like now I'm a personal brand. I'm Tarzan Kay. It's me. But initially I had a brand name and it was all we. And then I was like, okay, I saw all these other people doing that. I was like, it's weird. Like, I know it's you. And there's friction there when it's like, you're saying like, customers can sense that disconnect, even if they're not fully aware of it. It's like something feels weird about this. So I went back to and then as I grew a team, it was all we, and that was important because like we were doing it together, and I wanted to give my team the credit and let them know like this is a group effort. I'm kind of the I'm kind of the lead singer, but I also have this band. And now I'm the lead, and now it's me again. So now I'm a one man band pretty much. And now it's back to I, and, you know, along the way, it has been like, honest, it's just like one more thing that people got to come along the ride with me.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about storytelling, and let's talk about AI, because I know this from running my own business program, which is just beginning now. Specifically for yoga teachers. Several yoga teachers have come to me in the last few weeks and said, oh my goodness, it's so easy. Now I can just write all my posts and write all my website content with AI. And what's really interesting, like just yesterday, for example, somebody showed me a sales page she had written for a particular yoga workshop she wanted to run. And she told me, you know, I did some of it with AI and I wrote some of it myself. And I was literally able to read through and immediately pick the paragraphs and the chunks that she had written, which were beautiful and very compelling and very her, and the AI chunks that felt quite vanilla and a little bit clunky, let's say. So I'm pretty sure you're not anti-AI. Like, you're not going to say there's no place for us to be using AI, but how does story fit in? Where is AI useful? Where is it not useful? Tell us about that.
Well, I think it's a really wonderful tool. Like, love the possibilities that are opening up with AI, especially for people who don't consider themselves very good writers. But there's a few things that it doesn't do well, which is like, as a personal brand, as a business, there's something that one of my teachers, Sam Woods, talks about. He calls it the strength of the signal. And that's like your core message, like all of those things that make you, why people want to come to your yoga business rather than this person over here who's using like the same modality and their classes have the same names. Like, that is not something that AI can figure out for you. You can teach it. This is my thing, use this style, these are my core themes, but it can't make that up for you. So if you're relying too heavily on an AI tool when you don't have those things figured out yet, like, you're going to get same. Like, you're going to get what's already out there, because it is literally based on everything that's already out there. So that's important to recognize. And the tool is really, like, if we're talking about ChatGPT or really most of the other tools, like, it's really only as good as the prompts that you give it. So if you're going to, like, that in itself is a skill. So you can't use, like, if you're trying to bypass learning copywriting in order, like, and just to use AI, well, those are two different skills, and you actually need to have both in order to make ChatGPT work for you. But there is and that's absolutely worth it. That's time well spent. Like, it's a really great place to do customer research, to bone up on like some of your pain points. If you're going to use, and it actually does a really great job with storytelling, and you can use prompts like, open the story with dialogue. Tell me a story about such and such a person that had this problem and how they overcame this problem. But like, that's a sequence of prompts, and you actually need to know how to do it. If you just say, for one thing, anytime you tell an AI tool to write a sales email or a sales page, it's immediately cheesy. So things like that, you do need to know how to like hack the system. Like, anytime I've had ChatGPT write an email for me or with me, because that's really what it will do. Like, I never use the word sales, because it's automatically like, do you struggle to write emails that sound like you? Like, it's just, it doesn't do anything. So you, like anything, you have to use the tool, but you have to learn how to use the tool, but it is absolutely worth the time to learn.
Yeah, beautiful. And I guess from a sort of very personal perspective, and this goes back to what we were speaking about before, evolving in front of our audience, there are going to be some stories and some narratives that no AI can ever share, because there are stories, and then maybe there could even be stories that we've never shared with anyone, so they're not out there. I want to ask you, and this is something I feel that you do really skillfully, and I've found my way with now, but it took quite some time. I know it's something a lot of yoga teachers struggle with. how much is sharing too much and how much is not enough? Like, where's that sweet spot between I want to be sharing who I am and living in a way that is really, transparent, and at the same time, my customers aren't my therapist, right? Like, there's such a thing as oversharing. How do we find that balance?
Yeah, well, I've found it a lot through trial and error. I know that by default, I tend to be an oversharer, so I have to dial it back rather than ramp it up. I also know, like, we're sort of in the age of personal brands, and it feels like everything is just like the wheel of content, like churning out every area of your life. Like for me, like my children, basically never talk about my children. Sometimes I talk about parenting, but I don't share pictures of my children on social media. Like that, there are certain areas of my life that I compartmentalize and that just get to be mine. Like my email subscribers don't really get to hear about certain topics. And I have had to figure those out, which areas are just mine. And I know, like, I've made plenty of mistakes, but I do think one of the things about writing your story and writing it yourself rather than having a machine write it for you is incredibly cathartic and important. And you learn a lot about yourself in telling that story. And you also see which parts people are most interested in. So that's one thing I love about email is, like, it's a constant back and forth conversation, because my email subscribers will lean in when I talk about certain things. Like, when I talk about, like, I sometimes talk about things that are a little taboo. Like sometimes I talk about being polyamorous. Sometimes I talk about doing drugs. Like there's a few areas that I'm like, let me just like dip my toe in here and like see if they're interested. Once I myself have decided I'm willing to share this part, then I'll dip my toe in. And, there are plenty of things about our lives that like people just don't care about. And there's other things that are, that you'll see that they lean in and want to hear more about, but it is a bit of trial and error, and it's different for everyone. Like it depends on your audience. Like, who are they? What demographic things, but also like, demographic things, also their life experience. Like there's, every audience is different. So I can't say like, don't talk about these things, but talk about these things. You do have to sort of feel that out. And that's actually can be a wonderful and rewarding process. Because when you find something that you're like, oh, people just love when I talk about this. I'm like, sometimes I'll write an email and I'm like, I'm just going to like give it to them with this. They're going to love it. And then, other things I get excited about. I'm like, oh, this is like so funny. This is so interesting. And there's like no response. Like, okay, I got it. They're not interested in that.
You do have a pretty kooky sense of humor. I mean, I get your sense of humor, but I can see how, because I have the same problem as well. I'm like, oh my God, this was like the funniest thing ever. And people are like, yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah,
but also, Katie, like the kooky people, like, those things about myself that are like extra weird that like only a few people get, like those people are my customers. Like if I have an email list of 10,000 people and, I do something that's like extra special and extra kooky, and there's like 12 people that like really get it and love it, like those are my people. So not every email can be like that, because I'll lose the other people that might come along with me. But, I've loved having you as a customer because for that exact reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, I mean, again, there's just so many things I want to ask you, and I'm aware of time, but I do want to ask you about what you would say to someone who says, oh, I don't need to work on my email list. It's not important. Emailing doesn't matter. I do it all on social media. My audience is on social media. I share on social media. I have engagement. I make sales maybe too. Like why would you say that email is important and compelling?
Yeah, well, I will just admit up front that I'm inherently biased because I'm really bad at social media and I hate doing it. And I do want to say, like, if you're doing social media and you're not doing email and it's working for you, like, I'm never going to come in and say, do this other thing because this really works, if what you're already doing is working. Like, are you filling your classes or your calendar of one-on-one? Like, if you have those things and you're good, like just do that. Because one thing I've noticed about online business is there's just like this constant pressure to want more, achieve more, scale, be bigger. And in a lot of cases, like once you build that sort of business, you might find that you actually liked it better when you were just like doing your thing on Instagram and you had like enough. So that's a larger issue. But for me, learning what is enough has really changed. Like I make different decisions about the things I do and the things I don't do. However, there is just a lot more, you have a lot more control when you have an email list. Like I know every time I send an email, like X number of people are going to open it. I can pretty much predict who's going to click on it. Whereas with social media, like if I'm doing a promotion, which I am right now, and I was like, okay, I better do a reel here because like I'm promoting this thing. I got to do it. So I go do it. And like, you know, like I have 10,000 followers versus 10,000 email subscribers is wildly different, like is so different. Of those 10,000 followers, if I publish a story, like maybe that story is going to get, you know, if I haven't posted in a while and it's really good, maybe 800 people are going to see it. Versus, you know, if I send an email to 10,000 people, like I can be pretty certain 3,000 people at least are going to see that. And then you have way more control. Like I can track the things that people are interested in based on what they click. I can have segments of customers. Like, you know, I know you are an Email Stars customer. Therefore, like in the summer, we're going to do this little special promotion that's just for my Email Stars customers. I can talk to them directly. Like it's just, it has so much more flexibility as a tool. But of course, like ideally you do both.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things I've noticed people who are transitioning into email from having been very focused on socials that they love is the ability to see a little bit more how people are interacting, who's opening, what are they clicking on, what are they interested in, what am I getting replies to? Like it does open up a lot more opportunity to see what people are loving and how they're interacting with you as a business. Thank you so much for your time today, Tarzan. I know that you have recently relaunched a website and you've got a bunch of really awesome free opt-ins, one of which is some templates for writing a welcome sequence, which I've already been recommending to a couple of people and I know people have been using and they're really fantastic. What are some, you've got a few things, right? What are some of the other things people can get from you, goodies that they can get started with you through your website?
Yeah, so the people I can help the most are online businesses, particularly those that are selling services or digital products. And there's one thing that people like the most, that's the most popular, which is a series of 10 promo emails. So if you are, you know, don't really know how to write promo emails and you just want some sample emails that are kind of swipeable, there's a 10 email promo sequence you can get. There's also, my favorite thing on there is an audio series about persuasion and how we sell things. And that's really like, I made it as kind of the antidote to what's being commonly taught online about how to sell things. And if you have been taught things that you're like, ooh, not sure I want to do that, that series will help you understand why you don't want to do that and what to do instead. So all of that is available at tarzankay.com.
Yeah, beautiful. And for anyone, particularly, you know, the yogis who are interested in aligning, which we're going to be talking about in some of the other talks in the summit, aligning your marketing and your brand with values like the yamas and niyamas, you know, ethics around, like Tarzan was just talking about, greedlessness, for example, and, you know, honesty and, you know, all of those sort of ethical considerations. A lot of Tarzan's work will cross over with that because that's something she, even though she personally avoids the word ethics, I've seen you write about that. But yeah, all that good stuff around just being aligned with your values, I guess we could say. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you one last question, which is, if you were able to give, like right now, and of course this is probably always changing, your top 3 copywriting pitfalls / tips, like what do you see people doing that just you wish they wouldn't do, and then what are your like top 3 little nuggets for now?
Okay, well, for the first thing, like anything that you write it in a Google Doc or a Word doc instead of on the platform where you're going to publish it. Like write it over here, let it simmer. A lot of people write their websites like using a template, and then they just try and like cram it into like where the design lets them put things. Your copy will be much better if you just write it on a blank page and then transfer it to the next stage, wherever it needs to be. Even today I was writing an Instagram caption, and I was like trying to write it in this like little teeny freaking square here. Why do they do that? And I was like, okay, this is going to be a lot better if I open up my notes app and then I just copy paste it over. So that's one thing. The second thing I would say is consistent practice. Like if you're not a great writer, like really the way people become great writers is by writing a lot and reading a lot. And that just takes time. So, and there are shortcuts. So you can certainly learn shortcuts, like learning the principles of persuasion. That's important. It's in that audio I just mentioned. So giving it time, consistent practice, I guess that's the second thing. And let's see, what is the third thing? I guess the third thing, my third tip would be like writing about the things that you're really excited about rather than the things you should be writing about. Like I should be writing my email list about email. Like, duh. I could like give them tips for like how to write sales emails. And I do, like, I absolutely do that. But that's only like maybe 10 to 20% of what I write about most of the time. And I think this is why I'm so consistent with my emails is I write about like what's happening right now, like what's coming up, what am I excited about? You will have so much more momentum if you do that. And just one tip is like, I also keep notes about those things. So, and when I'm going to write an email, I have a list of like hot topics. Again, today for this dreadful reel that I had to make that I didn't want to, I was like, no, I don't want to do it. And I was like, let me just look at my like hot topics list. And I went over to my list and I was like, okay, great. I know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Like constantly collecting little nuggets as you go throughout your life, and then it's there rather than sitting down and going, okay, what am I going to write about now, and trying to pull something out of the air.
Precisely.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you've been here. I always love chatting with you. And yeah, I really want to encourage everyone who's listening to go grab some of Tarzan's free resources, and even just actually subscribe to her regular emails, her newsletters, because as she just said, she writes every week, and you'll learn a ton just from actually reading the stuff that she's delivering to her audience. I found that personally to be a really helpful way of learning and growing with you, Tarzan. And one other thing I'll just add before we close, and I'll come back to you, is
okay.
I really want to encourage everyone who is beginning the copywriting journey to, your evolution will happen over time and you'll get better. Like, and you might not necessarily notice it. It's incremental, right? Like it's same as with a yoga practice. We all know this. Anyone that's dedicated themselves to anything, whether it's learning a musical instrument or a language or, some sort of physical embodiment practice, we get better. And at some point we go, oh, okay, I'm all right at this. Like I was telling Tarzan last week, I went back and read something I'd written earlier this year. So not even that long ago. Like I've been in business 20 years. And I went back and read an email I'd written earlier this year. And I was like, I would never write that now. It was full of cliches. It was full of things that are quite generic things to say. Like, I just know how to write better marketing copy than that now. To the point where I was actually quite surprised I'd written it. So that's in just a few months. And we don't necessarily notice that as it's happening. But exactly as Tarzan just said, through practice, through doing it over and over again, like my teacher, Sharon Gannon, my yoga teacher, always says, through repetition, the magic is forced to arise. And I love that because we just keep going and the magic is forced to arise. Tarzan.
Yeah. And just to add to that, to reinforce what you're saying, like copywriting for any business of any kind, but particularly if you're doing something online, like copywriting is a fundamental skill. Like you cannot be successful as an online business if you don't know how to write copy, or you don't have someone working for you who knows how to do it. Like, this is essential.
Yeah, we'll end with that. Thank you, my love. Talk to you soon.